Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are here today to discuss another topic of some of the myths that we wish we had known before we ever started recovery. And again, my partner is here with me. Jamie, how's it going, sister?
Doing good. Happy to be here. Happy to be
Nice.
here.
Nice. So one of the things that we want to actually just get right into is what are some of the things that we wish we had known sooner about food addiction? And I'm wondering if some of these topics may resonate with you as well. Jamie, do you want to talk about the things that you wish you had known sooner, or do you want me to go first?
Oh, you go first.
So, one of the things I wish I had known sooner was just that it actually was a thing, the ultra processed food use disorder. I really thought I was just broken, or this is an ugly word, but I just thought I was a pig and that I just couldn't stop. And, it was embarrassing. I didn't want people to see it. I thought I was broken in some way. And I never heard anybody else talk about it. So I thought it was just me, which it makes you feel so horrible about yourself when you're like, I don't know why I can't stop eating that. And of course, it always goes back to willpower, right? I always just thought, well, you just lack willpower, and no one else in the room seems to be suffering with this but you. So I was so grateful to find out that I literally had a blood flow shift when these cravings and when I'd get into the cabinet and you've heard me talk about the monsters would come out. I never knew when the scary monsters were going to come out and get me. And, it may be 4 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon and I'm starting to make dinner and all of a sudden I've gone through a sleeve of saltines with butter. I'm like, why did I even do that? I honestly, hand to God, had no idea why I would do that and why I couldn't stop even though I was past full. And I really just thought it was a willpower thing. But I knew I was floating around on the ceiling watching this when it was happening. So I knew that was odd. But again, I still didn't attribute it to anything else because I had no knowledge, no language. I was in a foreign country, behaving in a way that was unfamiliar to me. I just didn't understand it was a biological hack going on. And at that point, I really didn't understand the concept about ultra processed foods and how they're just engineered to override hunger signals and dopamine balance. And my other couple of big ones are moderation doesn't work. I mean, I always thought I could just have some of what everyone else was having, and I didn't understand that one bite. Well, I mean, I did understand one bite meant like a whole sleeve of Girl Scout cookies. That was a serving for me. I knew I couldn't stop, but again, I thought it was a willpower problem. But every time I would convince myself and say, I can just have a few. Everybody else in the room is doing it. I want to join in. But yes, I didn't understand that moderation for me was not an option because once my brain went offline, it's hard to get that train back in the station when you're dealing with addictive substances. Just like alcoholics, you don't tell them to just drink responsibly. You'll be fine, even though everyone else in the room is doing it. So abstinent from certain trigger foods for me is actually freedom, not restriction. And the last thing I want to
Well,
talk
can
about,
we pause? Can
yeah,
we
yeah,
pause
yeah.
there? I think there's a lot of content there to unpack. I think the first thing, that you brought up is very important for folks to understand. It was important for me to understand, not only where the blood flow goes when we're having cravings, right? It leaves our frontal lobe when it goes to our amygdala, which is our fight or flight or freeze or fawn um, area of the brain where we're not making rational choices. So that's the first thing. Once I understood that my blood flow changed in my brain, it led me to let go of a lot of the shame of what's wrong with me.
Totally, totally.
Why do I lose? Like I know this food makes me takes me further away from my goals for recovery. Why am I choosing it? So there's that. The other, to understand the blood flow. The other thing that again I learned about these foods is how they're manufactured. They're manufactured to hijack those pathways in the brain that mimic addictive responses with hardcore drugs and alcohol. So, processed foods, it's a much, lower intensity, but it's still those same addictive pathways are lit up.
Hmm.
So when we think about how the food, like for me, when I would, eat those ultra processed or calorically, dense, even homemade stuff, if I would eat it and I was in a place where I was not present to what was happening, not
Yeah.
present to what I truly needed, not food related, by the way, then I would find that the food, would light my brain up and I would be off to the races, um, responding to that food exactly the way the food companies wanted my brain to respond to the food. So it was not like I was broken. I was actually exactly right.
Yeah.
My brain, I was actually, and everyone else that I know, including you, Paige, we're actually responding exactly right to the ultra processed, highly stimulating, addictive ingredients in these foods.
Yeah, and don't you think that when we talk about the things that wish we had known sooner about ultra processed food use disorder, is the science exactly what you're explaining? I had never
Right.
heard that conversation. I don't know when it came to you, but I literally wept whenever I had a full understanding because finally I had an answer to what was going on. And it was such a relief because then you have something to work with and you know
Well,
what to do about it.
yes, and I think it's important was important for me to understand yet, that I was acting the way my body and brain were designed to act with these ingredients, but also it was helpful to understand how these ingredients and foods are formulated and engineered and chemically altered. Not only that, they're marketed in a very specific way at specific times to specific groups, including children.
Yeah.
They're not only okay. There's the marketing, right? So it's intentional and it's targeted, and then you have society, right? It's everywhere around you. It's not only is it marketed to you, but it's literally available everywhere.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
you have all of these things that are working against you. And once I understood all of the ways that the processed food industry was aiming to hook us, then I was able to say, okay, so it's it's me acting exactly the way that I was designed to act in an environment that's prompting me to act
Oh,
that way.
totally.
So it was
Totally.
like, oh, well, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Like I'm under siege. And I had to like think about it as, okay, well, how do I want to show up? So then for me, it became about how do I want to show up in a world where I'm under siege?
Yeah.
So it became about this took years, but what I wanted to be, do, think, and act all day long so that when I am under siege, I'm not constantly going to the ultra processed crap thinking
Hmm.
that it's what I needed because it isn't.
Hmm.
But see what I mean? So for
Yeah.
me, my recovery has taught me a lot about how to appreciate where I am emotionally, intellectually, mentally, and the food is just the food.
Hmm.
But when you're early in recovery, you don't have those tools and that wiring yet, so that it is important to clean up your environment. It is important to be aware of your triggers. It isn't, and to avoid those overstimulating, over triggering environments. It is important, right, to set your home up for success.
Hmm.
Um, but as you advance in recovery, you realize that you have to sort of suit up because it's going to come at you no matter what. You have
Hmm.
to suit up before you can go out in the world. So, and I
Hmm.
suit up in other with other recovery tools.
Hmm.
And that's why I think it's important to remember, and that's I say this all the time, a lot of what we're learning now is yes, the food is highly addictive. And there are ways to shore ourselves up so we're not, in that constant like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, eat the food, the food, the food. Right. We
Hmm.
have to be in a place where we're like, okay, this is the food, this is the environment, and I'm here. And if I feel triggered about stuff, I have other tools to use so that if I am going to interact with the food, any food, that I'm in a place as present as possible to interact and consume it. And I'm not
Do
talking about processed. I'm just talking about any food.
mhm. For the people listening, when they hear you say that, they might be saying, "What tools is she talking about?"
Yeah. So tools can look like, and again, we teach them in our recovery community. We've talked a lot about their branches of recovery. So when we think about being connected, right? You've heard the phrase, Paige and I have used it, but it's attributed to Johann Hari, who talked a lot about addiction being the opposite of connection. So if I'm feeling like I want to dive into a bag of junk, I probably need to pick up a phone and call someone, and not just say, "Hey, I want to dive into a bag of junk," but just be like, "Hey, what am I feeling?" Right? Pick up the phone, figure out what I'm feeling, talk about it. Um, Sit down, do some deep breathing, do some journaling, go for a walk in nature, take my dogs out and play with them. Something to do to distract myself from the craving loop, but more importantly, to dig into what's actually happening in my body that's causing me the craving.
Mhm.
So again, there's many ways. Dr. Judd Brewer's been on the podcast. He's talked about that, how to disrupt the craving loop as well. And there's a little bit more, he's got a more formulaic approach, which is a great approach. So again, everyone finds their way over time. But for me, if I don't process those emotions, if I don't process what I'm feeling, the anxiety I have, the thoughts I'm feeling or thinking, the emotions that are created inside of me as a result, then I I will turn to something to give me ease and comfort.
Yeah. Yeah. I was as you were talking about that, I was thinking about how the biggest trigger for me, I think, is boredom. If I even had like a 15-minute downtime, that would terrify me between appointments or something like that because it's so weird. Before I started recovery, my brain would go straight to, I'm sure it's the ADD in me too, that, oh my gosh, you're in a panic. You've got 15 minutes of downtime, 5 minutes of downtime. What are you going to do to fill that time? Do you have a certain trigger situation that sparks that craving pattern or anything? I mean, have you noticed a pattern in the hard what seems to be the hardest moment?
The downtime is not an issue. Um, Again, but I've had um, a lot of years of recovery, of formal recovery, and I have um, different things that I use, including prayer, including meditation, including, you know, um, formal 12-step recovery tools that are very helpful to help me understand what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, and how to process those things so that I'm not using something to distract me.
Yeah.
Um, but again, that takes time to acquire those tools. But like I would say for me, this was something we learned in our former recovery group, but that was all about the post-apocalyptic meltdown, as it was called. And I think that for me, it's very real, where if I've been in a very stressful or intense, not environment or time period or something like was really like I'll give an example. Friday all day. I was from 6 a.m. all the way until like 9 p.m. It
Brutal.
was back to back to back to back to back to, I mean, it was nuts. And I was
Brutal.
dealing with a family member who was, we were dealing with some placement stuff for extended care, and it was just constant. And
Mhm.
I finally sat down at 9 o'clock at night, and I was like, okay, I've got to do some stuff for RFR. And I remember, I had had my meals, when I was hungry throughout the day. Like I did, I brought my meals with me and had my stuff that I needed. But it was more just, uh, I felt like I wanted a reward for getting through the day.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, 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 yes.
So but I have things, there are times where I will say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and have that 100-calorie, whatever bar of ice cream and the thing. And like, absolutely, because that's life. Like that's
So
a,
you
that's a deeply ingrained pathway that
y
I will allow myself to indulge as long as I'm mindful about what I'm doing
mhm,
while I'm indulging it.
mhm. You have to tell us how Friday turned out. What did you end up doing?
I did my RFR stuff that I had to do. and I sat down on my chaise and I had a little yogurt bar and went to bed. That was it.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, all of that's so interesting. And I was thinking about when you're talking about the science and understanding all this is once you understand it, you can't unsee it. Once,
Right.
w- which it's almost like this domino effect of like, oh, this, oh, and then that, oh, and then that. It's like your whole world changes. You see it everywhere because I think until I understood really about the ultra processed food and they're engineered to last for years on the shelf, I just didn't look at it as deeply. It's almost like it wasn't that I was ignoring it. I literally, when I say I didn't see it, I just hadn't been exposed to that line of thinking, and I just had not thought that way. I was more back in that moderation of I'll just see what's the least amount of this that I can eat and get away with and not feel in pain to stop eating it. So yeah,
Hmm.
that science is terrific. And one other point before you kind of dabbled in this a little bit, but before we finish talking about this, is one thing that is really important to know is that recovery is not about perfection. It's
Right.
more about stabilizing that brain chemistry with real foods so you can think clearly to do the next thing. And th-
Well, it's
I
about progress, right? It's
Yes,
about progress, not
yeah, talk
perfection.
about
So
that because how many people wanna quit when, day 2 and, they had a cookie or
yeah,
something, but
yeah,
yeah, that's I wish I had known about that more before I ever started recovery. You wanna talk about that?
yeah. The foods again, the foods are always going to be there, so it's important to have the tools so that when you are in that in that place where you can mindfully choose a food, and even if it's a food that is not, maybe it's goal neutral. It's not going to get you further away from your goal, but it's not going to take you closer, right? Which I would consider that yogurt bar the other night goal neutral food. Then I would just say, okay, like I know exactly why I'm doing this. I Food is a reward in some ways. It's 40 plus years of wiring, and it's been a lot of heavy emotional things, and I'm at a place where this feels like a way to unwind, and I'm being mindful about what I'm choosing to do with it.
Mhm.
There are plenty, I mean, millions of people that will unwind with alcohol, that will unwind with marijuana, that
Mhm.
will unwind with even harder drugs
Mhm.
or,
Mhm.
you know, sexual behavior. Who knows, right? So I feel like,
Mhm.
you know what? My yogurt bar is pretty, pretty harmless. So now maybe will I get to a point where I unwind with, some deep breathing and meditation? Maybe. Yoga poses? Probably not. Probably not. Will I get to a place where I'm able to mindfully be present with my feelings? Yes, I'm there. To say, yeah, I've had a long day and uh I'm not starving. I'm full, I'm satiated, but I'm just gonna go ahead and have this sweet thing because it's for me, I've had those years, had years of abstinence, had, years of moderation won't work for me. And there are times in life where I know I can't moderate some things. And there are times in life when I can. And there are times in life when I can moderate certain things and not others at all. But that's the key. Like it's knowing ourselves and knowing and knowing for me that it's not static. It's very dynamic. It's very dynamic. There
You
are
know,
times when I can't touch the stuff and there are times when I can.
It's you bring up a good point because I heard someone speaking on a podcast once about the people that she coaches and works with, and she said, if you can have a pack of single serving Doritos at a picnic and move on and not think about it again, I don't care. But if you already know that's going to lead into some horrific month-long binge of some sort, then that's a problem. So what do you think about that line of thinking? If you can have a yogurt bar and know that that's not going to spiral out into something else, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, and I used to, and I still think that that's a very helpful phrase. for a lot of people, and it was very helpful for me for a very long time, like that Dorito example. Beautiful
Mhm.
example. And what I, again, as you progress in your recovery, you get to a point where you're asking yourself, why is a single bag of Doritos not, what am I trying to fill? What am I trying to satisfy? What itch am I trying to scratch with this food and over consuming of a food that I know is not something I want in my body long term, right? Or every day.
Mhm.
Why am I trying to harm myself with these ultra processed foods? What is getting me to a point where I can't stop after a bag of Doritos, right? After a
Yeah.
snack pack or whatever, or after one yogurt bar. Where am I? And if I know that I'm at a point where I am frazzled and afraid and overly anxious, and I don't go to the food. I say, okay, am I truly hungry? And if the answer is yes, then okay, well, let me prioritize the foods that I know my body needs first, right? So it's not going to be a yogurt bar. It's going to be like lean protein and some veggies or a piece of fruit and
Mhm.
some lean protein. That's where I'd go to first and
Mhm.
then see how I felt. So that's the first thing. Am I hungry or not? The second thing is if I'm truly not hungry and I've had my snack bag of Doritos and I'm like, okay, and now I'm going to go home and I'm going to eat all the French fries and all the whatevers,
Mhm.
then I'd say, okay, what's going on?
Mhm.
What's going on here inside of me or my environment, relationships, whatever, my mental, psychological state? Why am I in a place where I want to overconsume foods that I know are going to take me away from my goals?
Yeah.
And if I can answer that question, well, and some, then I kind of dig into that.
Jamie's just done a great job of really defining what recovery actually looks like. And for people listening, that I just don't want anybody to feel like, oh, wow, she's so developed and I'm not. Jamie's been working at this a long time to get where she is, which brings us to the point that recovery is not linear. And that's okay. It kind of goes with it's not perfect. It's also not linear. You're not just going to have a straight line forward where you never have any problems or setbacks or relapses or moments of shame in your journey. So maybe let's talk about a little bit about what are the things that help us reset when we do have a sidestep now and then, because recovery can be messy, right? And so, do you want to talk about that first? Do you want to talk
Um,
about recovery not being linear and the things that we do to reset back on track when it's a little
yeah,
zigzaggy?
yeah. I mean, I think that um, there's a couple things that it's always a learning opportunity. So it's always good to stop and say, okay, what did I learn here? What were the things that were triggering me that maybe I missed? What else? What's on my plate here that I didn't even know I was carrying? I give an example of I was back several months ago. I was dabbling with some hormone replacement stuff for a few months, and one of the hormones was off the charts too high for me, and it was causing me all kinds of sugar cravings. And I was just constant. I was um in and out of the sugar, and I was like, what is wrong with me? Like I am, you know, almost 2 decades into this. What is wrong with me? And I had those shame messages again and those thoughts again, and I was like, there's what has changed? Like this must be like an aging thing. Like I really didn't know. Um, and then I called my doctor and we talked through some stuff, and I said, I can't stop thinking about sugar. She's like, oh, your stuff's out of whack. And I was like, what stuff? And she's like, your hormones. And I was like, she's like, it's kind of like you're living in your, couple of days right before your cycle starts.
Yeah.
You're living in there 30 days of the month now. I'm
Oh
like, that's
gosh.
horrific. Can we stop that, please? She's
Yeah,
like, absolutely. So,
please.
so that's the first thing I did was I looked at my, for me, it was medical environment or physical environment, um, physical, physical status, right? The actual status of our body and what's going on. What are we putting in besides food? So that was the first thing. The second thing I did was I called a fellow traveler who I'm in my program with, and I said, "Hey, I'm feeling like I want to go and eat more sugar tomorrow, and I have a whole plan in my head, and I just learned that it's due to hormones that were prescribed to me, and they're way too high, and I'm angry. Like I'm angry that because the hormone that was high is known for causing all kinds of cancer issues, and I was angry about it. And good news is it was only a month that it was out of whack, but still,
Oh,
it
yeah.
was enough. And she's like, okay. So we went through that and kind of processed it. And she's like, how do you still want to go eat sugar tomorrow? I said, yeah. She's like, okay, well, what else happened this week? And we kind of talked through some things. And by the time we were done talking through it, I had like 12 things, 12 things that weren't being talked about, that
Uh-huh.
weren't processed, that
Mhm.
on top of the hormone imbalances.
Mhm.
And she's like, gee, do you think that that's why you wanted to eat on top of everything? Like your hormones were setting you up, but look at everything else you had to deal with this week or that you haven't really talked through that you were carrying around with you. And
Mhm.
sure enough, then I was able to say, hung up the phone and I was able to say, okay, now I need a strategy just to get me through the next few days while these hormone stuff comes back into balance.
Mhm.
And I was able to successfully navigate that without going to the sugar,
Yeah, that's
only
great.
because I had unpacked everything else. So if
Yes.
somebody's coming to me and they're like, Jamie, I'm in the process junk and I can't stop and I don't want to stop. And oh my gosh, I look at everything else besides the food.
Yeah.
Because they think it's the food. It's not the food.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's what's taking you to the food.
Yes, I agree with that so much. And one of the things before we move on to our next point, when it comes to relapses, I wanted to say for me, and I've had a couple of side steps lately because I've been dealing with a lot of stress with some health issues in our family. And before you know it, I'm in an ice cream that I haven't had for years. And, half of that gallon is gone, or half of the half. I don't know what size the ice cream is, but the regular size. And one of the things that helps me, I think, is just my habits that I have ingrained habits so much. And of course, you are tremendously sick after doing a sidestep like that. And nobody wants to live like that. When you've seen a better life, a cleaner life, a bigger life, a more beautiful life, you know, just innately, that's how I wanna live. I don't wanna live this other way, and I know I can't moderate sugar, especially when I'm under stress and using it, in air quotes, for numb or pleasure or just blanking out. So, I think one of the things that has helped me is just developing my habits that if I have an off meal or something, I just like better the real food just sits better with my system. I'm a happier
Sure.
person, and I don't wanna live in that dark place. So,
Right.
having had the experience of being off of it, it does naturally do you agree it has a natural pull to wanna pull you back to your health goals? Because
Mhm.
we talk about, goals
Yep.
and values a lot in here, and I value my health and well-being, and I wanna be an example to others in my family and even just to myself. I just like living that way a lot better. So, I think just building up habits, clean habits helps. There's a gravitational pull that wants to draw you back
Yes.
in. So, anything else you wanna add on to that before we go on to the next one?
No, I just think that, again, relapse is part of recovery. When we do have those
Yes.
lapses and, and it happens, it's always an opportunity to learn from it. Let it go
Mhm.
immediately. Don't beat yourself up over it. You can't go
Mhm.
back. Get
Mhm.
Ask yourself what you can do to get yourself to a place where you're stopping. And an old recovery fellow that Paige and I both know, she's no longer with us on this earth, but she used to say, play the tape out to the end. And that is such good advice. And I always think of, her saying that.
I
Play
like
the
that.
tape out to the end. What is going to happen if I eat this food? How am I going to feel? What am I going to be thinking? How am I
Mhm.
going to feel later, tomorrow, whatever?
Mhm.
For me, it's like, how do I want to feel in my clothes? How do I want to feel,
Yeah.
moving around the world? How do I want to
Yeah.
sleep? How do I want to walk? Although those
Mhm.
are important considerations because the food can affect my joints. Processed
Mhm.
food can affect my joints and all of that. And then the other thing that I would say is important to think about is, it's if you look at what it is, it's maybe minutes that you're eating something, maybe depending on what it is. And PS, these processed food manufacturers are not making food that is slow to eat. They're making food that is almost pre-digested.
It could be an Olympic sport.
They're making food that is seriously like they talked about, melts in your mouth. Like that's engineered that way
Yeah. Yeah.
because they want you to consume more, so you buy more, right? So
Mhm.
so think about it. Once you understand that, then it's like, oh, um, I don't want to get to a place where um, I don't know, 3 minutes of my life affects the next 7 days. Like
Yeah.
that's crazy. Or
Totally.
7 minutes affects, 7 hours. Like that's also nuts. Like
Mhm.
the the short term pain is gain is long term pain. I'd rather flip that script.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with everything you just said, and I love that. Play the videotapes out till the end, which is why we talk about future self, staying in future self so much, and also we talk about impulse control a lot because that's tapping into that future self. It gives you that pause to think it through to the end. Yeah, good point. The other thing I want to talk about is how ultra processed foods affect our relationships when we're in them versus when they're out. They affect our relationships while we're deep into the food. They also affect our relationships when we're healing from the food. I'll
Mhm.
talk a little bit about my experience when I was deep in the ultra processed foods. I had a lot more lunch dates than I do now, which now I have 0. But I hung out with girlfriends that we would wanna, I'm just gonna say, go get high on the Chinese buffet or Mexican or whatever, because that was our source of entertainment. Yeah, we were there together, but I mean, I'm telling you, the main focus was our heads were down. They weren't up and looking and deeply having this meaningful conversation. But now that I don't do that as part of my socialization, for me, I have more meaningful connections because the activities that I choose are let's go for a walk or let's go to the gym or let's do bleachers or hike or something like that. And I don't want to talk about superficial stuff. The time I spend is so short and precious that I have to give as far as relationships with other girlfriends. I want to have a meaningful, deep conversation. I don't care about the superficial stuff. So I think getting off the ultra processed foods, you just naturally gravitate towards people who have your similar goals, and you're just so much more edified by doing those type of activities that you can bond over, truly bond over, not just get high with.
Right. Yes.
You
Yeah.
want to talk about your experience with that?
Just knowing that your friendships might change, but if they don't, if you have friends that are willing to meet you in different places or for different activities, that's a wonderful thing. And yeah, I mean, I've had a small group of recovery specific friends that would always, their that interaction revolved around food. And a few months ago, I don't have to do that with them anymore. So that's actually a good thing because a lot of times it was, there was no meaningful conversation happening over that. It was some kind of, can this table or this restaurant house 8 people? Okay, let's go. And it was like a whole kind of thing, like where I was constantly having to compromise my values for food because it was being with the group. And I'm like, I'm not even really getting a lot out of this time. So
Hmm.
that was, God handled that. And the friends that I do have now, my circle has become intentionally small,
Yeah.
for lots of reasons. So I like to have my time just spent connecting with people in more meaningful ways. And sometimes it's a phone call while I'm doing what I need to do and they're doing what they need to do.
I love that.
And if we get together, we try to make it something where we can always connect, talk by talking. It's not like we're distracted with something else. And then some other times I go, like, I think about it as service. Like I go and like I watched my two friends go and play some pickleball tournament. I think pickleball is stupid and ridiculous, but they love it. And I was like, I'm going to go support you. I think you're both addicted to this game, but I'm going to go support you. And that was service, right? And I was not looking for deep conversations. I was cheering on the sidelines and I was serving
Yeah.
them and 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 truly, impressed by how they had progressed in their pickleball skills.
Good. Did you let them
Truly.
know?
Yes, I did. I did. I think it's ridiculous and they're both addicted, but they did a great job.
How gallant of you.
Yeah, exactly. But my point, but like I'll know like, okay, this is not my social time. This is me supporting others and you know, supporting something that they love, even though I don't necessarily understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's other times when a friend needs me or I'll need them, and we're there just to be a support for each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great, great example.
Yeah, we need
Uh,
to have a whole other podcast about my opinions on pickleball, apparently.
I
I
know.
have some
I
strong ones.
right when you said that, I thought, uh-oh,
Yeah,
here it comes.
because Paige knows how I feel.
Our
It's unnatural how I feel about pickleball.
our podcast that just came out this past week when we're recording this, you had gone on a tangent about pickleball. So that's what made me laugh so much when you brought, I mean, it is a burr in your saddle.
Really, I don't know why. I don't know why. Well, I do. I have a few ideas why, but
Mhm.
yeah, it is a burr in my saddle.
Yeah. Um, One of the other points I want to bring up is about the lies that diet culture has told us.
Oh,
Things like smaller is always better. It's not about how you feel or anything like that. You're going to hate yourself unless you lose the 2.5 pounds a week that, any diet company is going to tell you. That it doesn't, if you slip up, you need to hate yourself and criticize yourself until you get it right. They also say, like, you need to reward yourself, and that clean eating it's just control it versus just wellness. Um, I'm trying to think if there's any others that I can think of about the diet culture. Can you think of anything that the diet culture lies to us about? You'll
all of
only
it.
be happy if you're super skinny.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a diet culture slash patriarchy slash those are the two big areas. I also think that um, and again, women and young girls especially are under this, you know, um, pressure to look and feel a certain way, and it's only done by extreme measures in most cases.
Right.
Um, and I also think that when I stop and think about the things I had to do to get to a certain number on the scale that I thought was an acceptable number socially, I was miserable. I was miserable.
Mm.
And I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. Nobody invited me out because she's kind of a bummer, always bringing her,
Mhm.
chicken and broccoli everywhere. So again, you have to ask yourself what you're willing to do and what you're not, and how important is it to live that way. If it's really important to you to live that way, then you'll make arrangements in your life so that all of your activities with other people are not food focused. I've
Mhm.
done that for a time, and it definitely, helped me get through some things and hit some things that I wanted to hit goal wise. But at some point, I realized that connection is can look and feel all different sorts of ways, and it's important for me to um, utilize my time in connection and not be so strict and stringent about how I do it.
Mhm.
Um, if I'm able to make arrangements that work for me and for my recovery, then I do that, but there's other times, and I know that, today's not the day. Today is not the day for me to go to a restaurant and hang out with people. I'm not in the place to do it.
Mhm.
So again, I think you have to know yourself. Chef AJ always talks about know thyself, like know yourself
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And PS, knowing yourself changes from day to day or
Mhm.
hour to hour sometimes. Like sometimes what worked for you that morning is not working for you in the afternoon.
Yeah. It's that leads into another topic that I really wanna make sure we get to, and that's food rules that we've let go of. And I'm gonna start with, I'm never gonna do keto again because I like my apples. I'm, not going to if I'm hungry after 6 o'clock, I'll still get something before bedtime. Intermittent fasting, I just kinda naturally fall into that, but I'm not gonna do, like, where I don't eat for 20 hours or something like that, or 1 meal a day. I'm never doing that, but when the no carbs keto carnivore first
Mhm,
came up, and I'm like, okay, there's the shiny new thing, I'm gonna try that. I'm never going to do an extreme
mhm,
again, whether it's vegan or carnivore. I really think just right there in the middle is, for me is my sweet spot.
mhm,
And the extremes I have found have really come back on me and cause more harm
mhm,
than good. So just a balanced, healthy diet of just
mhm,
sticking to single ingredient foods actually has helped my brain be the most calm. So crazy rules, I'm not doing those crazy rules, and I'm certainly not going to count every single calorie that I eat. I'm
mhm,
never keeping a tab all day long or writing down every morsel that goes. It made me crazy. It only
mhm.
made me crazier. So relaxing, and I'm not weighing myself. I'm not weighing myself once or twice a day. I'm never doing that again either. I mean, every once in a while you have to for the doctors or this or that,
Right.
but that's not a habit I will ever go back to. It's crazy making. So
Right.
if I ain't having fun and my brain is, I'm inviting anxiety, I, I'm not going to go, okay, what time is it? That means I can't eat because it's such and such. But the clock is going to tell me if I can eat or not. Mm-mm,
No,
not doing that.
no. Yep, I agree. And I've been on both sides of extremes, the vegan side for a while, the carnivore side for a very short time. Um, and again, I use the carnivore thing as a tool. It was, doctor supervised, and it got to the point where after about, I'd say 6 months, that was it. Like I was not interested in sustaining it further. I'd gotten certain things that I needed to get. The doctor was pleased with labs. Um, and I noticed that I was really craving things that, like fruit and um starches and, things that were not gonna take me further away from goals at all. But because I was limiting those things, I was now starting to get cravings, major cravings, and I was starting to lapse and going into the sugar. And I'm like, this is too extreme. And then that hormone stuff came back. So that there was a whole bunch of things going on. So the extreme, whenever I cut out a food group, I want it. All I do is want it more. So if
Yeah.
I think, oh, I can't have that food ever again, then of course I'm going to want that food. The other thing with vegan, that was a great fit for me for a long time until it wasn't,
Yeah.
right? Until it wasn't about 4 years. And I was sure I was going to be a whole food plant-based vegan the rest of my life. I had no doubt. And my body's like, sorry,
Yeah.
no. So
Yeah.
again, there's lots of reasons for it. But do I think that there's aspects of whole food plant-based eating, whole food eating that are important? Yes. Do I
Hmm.
think that there's aspects of that I learned when in my short time as a carnivore that I think are important? Yes. Those things
Hmm.
are, around the quality of the meat, the quality of the feed that your meat is
Hmm.
eating. Um,
Hmm.
with whole food plant-based eating, it was how to make things infinitely versatile and flavorful, um, with minimal calories, right? How
Hmm.
to bulk up your meals, and the calorie dense stuff, take that, maybe into a more manageable amount, and then bulk it up with a bunch of other, single ingredient veggies and fruits and things like that to kind of add color and volume to a meal. Like those are things that I still take with me today,
Yeah.
but I have a much more, like Paige, a much more balanced approach. But
Yeah.
you guys will hear, old versions of our podcast or old episodes of our podcast, and I was very militant, and I'm about, especially the vegan thing. I'm not proud of that, but I was, um, that's where I was at the time, and that's really what I believed in my heart. So I think that's, Paige has always talked about middle of the roadness, and I think that that's a good message.
And don't you think that's a great point to bring up about recovery too, about how it's okay that we evolve in time? I mean, that's part of
Yeah.
recovery too, just going, okay, this is what I thought. I've had more information, more experiences, and so I've changed my mind. And that's what we just call refining, right? We're just
Right.
refining
Yeah,
our process. That's it.
that's right.
And we've said this so many times ad nauseum, but what worked for us at one point
Yep.
will
May not.
change. I think
I heard
especially the female body.
absolutely. And you know, I was married to somebody years ago that said to me, you've changed so much from the person who you were when we were dating. And I was just like, it was, many, over a decade of time. And they're like, I just, such a different person. And I remember thinking, oh, I probably shouldn't have changed. Or, and they said, oh,
Oh,
even when we were first married, you were just different. And I just remember like taking and internalizing that and feeling like I shouldn't have changed. I shouldn't have changed. I should be like the person I was before. And what's wrong with me? And then I just last week I was listening to a podcast. A marriage counselor and therapist was being interviewed, and this is a Julie Gottman. She's been decades in research of successful marriages. Like this woman is the her and her husband are the go-to, if you want a successful marriage by numbers. Julie and John Gottman,
ah,
Gottman. They are the people. Julie Gottman was being interviewed, and she said she's been married to her husband, John, 38 years.
wow.
And she said, John has been married to probably 17 versions of me.
Good
And
for
I
you,
thought,
John.
and I thought, yeah. And she's like, the
Mhm.
fact that anybody thinks that their spouse is going to be the same person they married or early dated or whatever, she's like, that's that's unhealthy. That's delusional. That's
Yeah.
going to set you up for failure. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh yes, that marriage ended in divorce. So yes, that's failure. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm not blaming my ex-husband, but I'm saying to the point that anyone who thinks they're going to start out in a certain place and stay there forever is probably setting themselves up for failure.
Yeah, and do you want to stay in the same place forever? I mean, I
Mm,
hope I'm continually growing and improving instead of staying
yeah.
in the same place, which really will take us into our last point of, do you want to just share a couple of small habits that have made the biggest impact on your journey?
You go first.
I think for me, food prep, starting to do food prep is now a non-negotiable, and that one act has got me further faster probably than anything else, and sticking to my non-negotiables as far as movement and activity that has helped upstairs the noggin. Maybe that helps me even out every single day. But definitely, I think the food prep and thinking through my day the night before, because I like to coin the phrase, my day starts the night before. So making sure that I have a mental plan before I go before I go to bed at night for what the next day looks like. And it might be just having a few things prepped and ready in the fridge, or it might be having it packed if I'm walking out the door in the morning and I won't be back for hours. So it just depends on what my day looks like. But those few three things I think has given me the biggest gift on return. What about you?
Um, Setting yourself up for success with the basics.
Yeah.
For me, food prep looks a lot different than it used to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it may look that, the way it used to down the road, but that's where I am today. So meeting
Mm-hmm.
myself where I'm at is the first thing.
Oh, I like
Letting
that.
go, letting go of expectations for myself
Mm-hmm.
around outcomes. I just have an expectation that my only expectations are in my process. So now, for many years, it was in the outcome, but now it's in the process of, if I'm feeling like I need to dive into something, any kind of food, what's going on? Am I
Yeah.
underfed? Am I undernutrient? Am
Mm-hmm.
I underprotein? Or
Mm-hmm.
do I have some things I need to look at? Do I need to unpack 17 things that I've picked up this week that I never talked about? So
Mm-hmm.
there's commitment to the process, not to the
Yeah.
outcome.
Oh, I like
Um,
that.
and I would say, don't underestimate, and we talked about this, don't underestimate the value of community
Oh, I like that.
and connection.
Yeah. Yeah, which leads us into a plug for our community at Real Food Recovery. And you can find out more about us at realfoodrecoveryforyou.com. And if you want to grab our book, Real Food Recovery, If Food Isn't the Answer, What's the Question? You can find that on Amazon as well. Jamie, any closing thoughts that you want to leave
Nope.
with us?
It was a good discussion as
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you.